Hey Yogi, so good to have you here today. My name is Kelsey. I'm Kelsey Yogi here on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And today I'm going to go over a question that I actually get a lot on TikTok. I always get asked all the time, how do you roll over the balls of your toes? So I've had several instructors that have told me, specifically in Ashtanga, excuse me, I can't get my words out, specifically in Ashtanga, rolling right over the balls of the toes. So say like moving from upward facing dog to downward facing dog, or to go from Chaturanga Dandasana right into Updog. And let me tell you, for one, it's not really easy to do. It takes a lot of mobility and flexibility through the ankles and through the feet and even through the toes, and maybe it's not something that's meant for you because of your bone structure. But if it's something that you are working on, let me kind of show you the steps that I use to take in order to be able to roll right over the toes, and maybe even a little bit of a hack or two. So I think the first one that we come to when we are working in yoga a lot of times is going from Chaturanga, that lower form of the push-up, into upward facing dog. So that is not so bad. What has to happen in order for you to go right over the toes is that you really have to allow that shift forward to happen. Upward facing dog is a back bend. So instead of just lifting your chest up, shift forward, pull the chest through the arms, and let the toes just drop down. So I think what I used to do was try to roll the feet around. I don't know if you noticed that, but I would try to like roll the pinky toe edges of my feet. And that's what I had to do while I was still gaining flexibility. But like I mentioned, now instead I focus on making it a deeper back bend and super strong through the backs and the shoulders, and I just drag my feet through. So let me see if I can show you in somewhat of a slow motion here. So Chaturanga, pull the chest through. Okay, and it's quite a lot for the low back. It's a big back bend there. So give that a try. See how that feels to instead really drag yourself through and let the feet just naturally come down. If you have very, very tight toes though, and that's not happening, make sure that you're sitting in your Virasana and you're tucking those toes under and really getting those balls of the toes a nice, good stretch, a good flex, because that isn't something that we do a whole lot of. So stretch those toes out, sit in your toe stands, hang out like this. And then the same, is true in the opposite direction. Point the toes back, sit on the heels, or even between the heels, and that gives you lots of mobility through the ankles as well. So the other way that we do this a lot is to go from upward facing dog to downward facing dog. So when you're in up dog and your toes are pointing back behind you to roll right over the toes, what happens at first is you roll to the outer edges with the pinky toes, and then you push the feet back. And that's great, it's a great way to begin to get that flexibility through the feet, but over time, maybe you'd like to go right over the toes. And is it always comfortable? Maybe not so much. Is it good for your feet? Probably so, especially if you live somewhere like I do, a very cold climate. Most of the year we're in boots and shoes all the time, so our feet get very, very stiff. But don't rush this process, go slow with it. So from this upward facing dog, tops of the toes are down, you're going to push back. My toes are already starting to engage, so my toes get active. I'm all the way up on my toes. I have them kind of curled in, keep pushing, and you go right over them, okay? So that's something you're just going to have to practice. But like I mentioned, sitting on the tops of the toes in your Virasana is something that's gonna help a lot to get that toe mobility. So, all right, let me see if I can show you these two things once again in slow motion, and then I'm gonna give you a little bit of a hack that you can do as well. So here's the up dog, toes pointed back, chest is pulled through, push, push, push out of the shoulders, lift the hips. I'm on the tops of the toes, they're getting pushed, and roll right over them, okay? And do that every single time that you move through your vinyasas or you move through your sun salutations, and give it some time. I promise you it will come. Unless you have, had foot surgery. I've had some friends that have had foot surgery and it's just not right for them. So don't push those kinds of things. We have to accept where our limitations are without going, oh, I'm never gonna be an Ashtanga, I can't roll over the toes. Sure you can. What does it really matter? If it's something that really matters to you though and you want to work on it, then do it every single time you come to practice and just slowly work on getting that foot mobility. All right, so here's the hack that I was going to mention to you that I find does help. So I think it's the one where you go from Chaturanga into upward facing dog. So I'm down here in Chaturanga, and if it's too hard for you to just drop the feet like that, then what I do is I push back into the heels. I send my legs back, I push back into the heels. That creates a little bit more space, and then I'm able to roll right over the feet. So here we go, I'll show you. Chaturanga, push back into the heels, then I can drop the hips down. So give that one a try. Shift back, heels go back, then you can drop the toes down, okay? So hopefully that gives you some insight, but as you can see, if you look at some of my videos, I am always sitting, especially in this little crisscross version of Hero's Pose. I always have my toes kind of tucked over like this, and I think it's helped a lot for my foot and my ankle mobility. I promise you, I was never like a dancer that had super great feet flexibility and an amazing toe point. In fact, in high school and college, I was a long distance runner. I ran a few marathons, and I probably had as tight of feet as anybody else did. And then I found my way into yoga. I pretty much left running behind, and I had to change the way that I was doing things. So I guess those are my recommendations. Tuck those toes under, sit on your heels, push those toes back, sit on them. And when it comes to rolling over your toes for upward facing dog and chaturanga and downward facing dog, go for them every time. And if you have to still roll to the outer edges of your feet, like so, that's okay. That's a great start. That's how I did it in the beginning. I'll show you that again. So chaturanga, kind of drop to the outer edges of my feet. Then I came down to upward facing dog to go from downward facing dog. See how I push my heels out? Then I can come back onto the toes. So that's what I did in the beginning. And then as I got a little bit better, then I started to do my chaturanga, push back, drop. And when you push the heels back, I should have mentioned, when you push the heels back, sometimes I kind of slide, and then I can come forward, and it's not such an intense upward facing dog that way as well. So try that hack where you do the push back and then the slide forward. And if you have pretty good mobility through the back, then really work on engaging through the shoulders and through those back muscles, and just really rolling right over the tops of the toes. And know that you're going to have to lift the chest up nice and high, pull those shoulders back, and there's going to be quite a bit of a back bend in your up dog, but you'll have the tops of the toes down. Be patient with yourself. Practice, practice, practice. That's really what it comes down to. Years and years and years of coming onto your mat and just accepting where you are, but continuing to drive yourself forward. I hope that helped. Maybe you got a point or a tip that made something make sense to you. Know that I did not have this in the beginning, and I know I'm not perfect now, but that's just how we are in our yoga journey. So leave me a comment down below. Let me know if that helped you at all. Share this on your social media. Drink your water. Follow me on TikTok and on Instagram. I'm Kelsey. I'll be there too. But most of all, please like and subscribe. It helps me so much on my YouTube channel, and I appreciate it greatly. You guys have an amazing day. Tell me what I need to do in my next video, and have a great day. Namaste.